Yes, I now recognize the chairman of our subcommittee on financial institutions, Mr. Barr of Kentucky, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great hearing, important hearing, and our witnesses, I think, have made a very powerful case for modernization to the Bank Secrecy Act framework. The banks in Kentucky have complained in particular about the redundancy of current customer information. One piece of feedback is we have to fill out forms on existing customers when they're opening an additional account, and being able to use the original information on customers should be sufficient. Mr. Court, do you hear this complaint, and why aren't the agencies, FinCEN or the other supervisory agencies, addressing that basic question?
Yes, that reflects the sort of entrenched orthodoxy at the agencies, which is just always just more information, more reviews is always better. There's no sort of natural predator against that instinct, which is why I think the incentives are misaligned. But in the current administration, FinCEN has acted to try to reduce the extent to which that's happening. And FinCEN put out FAQs, I think earlier this year or late last year, instructing that you don't have to do those additional reviews every time an existing customer, say, gets a new credit line or gets a new credit card with the institution. The bank can rely on the due diligence already done.
Well, thank you for that. And obviously, we do need to update these thresholds for CTRs and SARs based on inflation. And I am a co-sponsor of Congressman Loudermilk's bill, H.R. 1799, which would update these thresholds for financial reporting. But I want to get at Mr. Redboard's kind of more overriding point, which is that we need a new supervisory architecture that rewards institutions that adopt AI and other technological tools that more effectively get at illicit activity, as opposed to this box checking exercise and compliance volume as a measurement of how effective we're. TRM sounds like an amazing firm. What is the adoption rate by financial institutions in this country of technological tools like the ones that you offer?
Thank you for the question. Look, as we see more and more financial institutions looking to enable technology, we're working with many or most of them today, certainly in the digital assets ecosystem, but even beyond to many of the banks that are part of Mr. Court's organization. So I would say more and more we're seeing financial institutions leverage this technology. I would say from an AI perspective, and Mr. Court made this point, it's critical. When you talk to financial institutions about using AI tools, it's often, well, you know, I'm not sure how my regulator is going to react to that. Yeah. And I think the reality is that having safe harbors, having a messaging from FinCEN, having messaging from Congress on the importance of using technology, cutting-edge technology to do this work is critical.
And Mr. Court, could we significantly reduce the compliance burden on institutions if we shifted the legal framework from just volume of SARs production to rewarding institutions that are investing in technology to look at the real risks?
You absolutely can, and that's absolutely what we should be doing. We had one institution in our membership that reported spending $111 million in 1 year just on CTR filings. So it's just a tremendous waste of resources. There should be more automation. There should be less noise. Everything should be more risk-focused.
Yeah, one other thing, Mr. Court, I get this feedback a lot, again, from constituent of financial institutions in Kentucky, that there's no feedback. They produce all of these SARs, and I think the statistic is what, only 2%, 4 million SARs annually, and FinCEN estimates that law enforcement acts on only 2% of them. But then, on top of that, financial institutions get no feedback of whether what they're doing is actually helping combat illicit activity. How much feedback does FinCEN or law enforcement provide to financial institutions so that the institutions themselves can prioritize their compliance resources?
Yeah, the reason a lot of smaller institutions, including some that might be in Kentucky, file all these SARs that get no feedback is because they're not filing the SAR to help law enforcement. They're filing the SAR because they don't want to be criticized by their examiner for some silly little thing that they might have missed. So that's what they're doing with their resources. So I'm not surprised that law enforcement doesn't follow up. I will say in larger institutions, law enforcement and FinCEN and the larger institutions, particularly those institutions that have these financial intelligence units. This is really sort of the avant-garde of where this should be going, where resources should be allocated. It's a much more sophisticated investigation exercise inside the banks, and there's much more collaboration. So I will give law enforcement credit there. But these wasted filings are need to go away.
Thank you. Yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. I now recognize the gentleman